Tonight's theme is the music of science fiction. Now I'll explain to you later how that came to be. The Oxford English Dictionary describes science fiction as fiction based on an imaginary future, whereas myth and fantasy is fiction based on an imaginary past. We will be presenting music from both genres tonight. Now, within science fiction, there are two broad categories: utopian and dystopian. Utopian means that you believe the future will be better. Dystopian means you believe the future will be far worse. Our opening number is the theme from 2001, The Space Odyssey. The movie came out in 1968 and presented the viewer an opportunity to speculate on a world controlled, directed, or just assisted by artificial intelligence. Do you realize that movie came out over half a century ago? Today we can look at that film and see, what did they get right, what did they get wrong? Well, what they got wrong is that they portrayed computers as huge devices with lots of moving parts and spinning disks. Today we have tiny computers that we put in our pocket. But what they got right was that the movie predicted that artificial intelligence could and probably would challenge the very values on which our society is based. A Handbell Odyssey. In keeping with the science fiction and space travel theme tonight, Bells in Motion has chosen the next number from Gustav Holst's orchestral suite titled The Planets. Now, this song that you're going to hear is from the Jupiter movement of that suite, but you may know it as O God Beyond All Praising. Gustav Holst wrote this 7-part suite just over 100 years ago. But he was a guy with whom many of us could identify today. He was a man of our times, in a sense. He had multiple jobs. He was extremely busy, and he didn't have a lot of time for composing. So he began writing his Planets Suite during a rare vacation. Then he struggled for years to finish it. When he could find a few minutes between work, he would work on this suite, and eventually he just got discouraged and had to bring some colleagues in from the university. Valley Lasker and Nora Day helped him to finish it. The first complete performance of the Planets Suite by the London Symphony Orchestra was 6 years after he began writing it. The crazy part was that the orchestra got the final draft 2 hours before performance time. Jupiter. The song Blue Skies is featured prominently in the film Star Trek Nemesis. It is sung by Lieutenant Commander Data during a wedding, and then it is sung again at the end of the film. It was also featured in Star Trek Picard. Now, the original Blue Skies song was written by Irving Berlin in 1926, and it was composed at the last moment as filler in a musical called Betsy. The premiere performance of Blue Skies was sung by the actress Belle Baker. It was an instant success, and the audience demanded 24 encores. Belle Baker sang the song 24 times and was so exhausted she could not continue. Irving Berlin, who was sitting in the front row and wrote the song, stood up and sang it one more time. Just so you know, I've been told that Bells in Motion will not be performing 24 encores this evening. Something else that I found surprising about this song is that it did reach the #1 slot on the country charts in 1978. The country charts. The artist was Willie Nelson. Blue Skies. as far back as the 2nd century, writers have speculated about travel to the moon. Around 160 AD, the Greek philosopher Lucian wrote what is considered the first science fiction novel. In it, travelers to the moon run into giant spiders. In 1865, Jules Verne published his Moon Voyage, in which the Baltimore Gun Club fires a giant bullet-shaped projectile containing 3 space travelers. It orbits the moon and then falls safely back to the ocean. Now, it's easy to consider these past misconceptions about moon travel to be absurd in our time of, scientific certainty. But we have to admit that even NASA had misconceptions about travel to the moon until the lunar lander actually touched down in 1969. For instance, NASA supposed, based on their calculated age of the moon and the measured constancy of space dust moving through the atmosphere, they had determined that there would be a layer of dust on the moon several feet thick. Now, you remember those giant pads that were on the bottom of the lunar lander. That's what that was about. But when the astronauts arrived, very little dust, maybe a ½ inch. So one thing we can say about the moon is you never know till you get there. Fly me to the moon. Derek Bunkowski brings us Catch a Falling Star. When we look up into the night sky, sometimes we will see a glimpse of a meteor as it burns its way out into the atmosphere. And as far back as ancient times, people referred to that phenomenon as a falling star. Now I have a fond memory of last summer lying out on the grass on the shores of Lake Geneva with Casey and Kendall, and we watched the Perseid meteor shower. And what we realized is that a falling star is just a fleeting moment. It's just so brief you can hardly see it. In 1957, Perry Como composed and performed Catch a Falling Star. It was meant to talk about the fleeting nature of new love. It encourages the listener to recognize new love and to hang on to it as long as possible. It's also interesting that the Bible mentions the analogy of a falling star 7 times. Now, the Bible doesn't refer to the star as fleeting love, but as an encouragement and a reminder that evil, although it seems permanent at the time, always fades and burns away as it's overcome by good. Catch a Falling Star. That is Derek Bunkowski. Now, as Kendall sets up to play the themes from Jurassic Park, I'm going to talk about something unpleasant, the finances. Yeah. So we're going to take a free will offering at this time, but I also want to talk to you about the fact that in the post-COVID economy, we've had to find some creative ways to do fundraising. So we have a 3-step program to do that. Now, you're thinking of the 12-step program, but it's 3 steps. It's like that, but completely different. It begins with the first step. You can sponsor a ringer. For $25, you can sponsor a ringer. The way you do that is you call in, or you, not call in, but you contact us on the website, bellsinmotion.org. For $25, you can tell us why you are sponsoring that ringer. You think they're cute, you like their smile. And I just want to reassure you that we are professionals. We're strict professionals here. We would never use the information that you provide to, say, ridicule the the people that receive the sponsorships. Like we would never point out that Derek Bunkowski, whom you just heard, has received more sponsorships than any other player. And they're always from his lady admirers. That's the kind of thing we would not point out. You can also buy a mallet for $50. You can replace one of these mallets. Our costume department, there's the costume department, they will convert that mallet into a likeness of you. So send a picture along with it or a picture of a friend, and that mallet will be presented to you or your friend at a future concert. Also do something called Golden Oldie for $75. You can purchase a song. So you let us know about a song that you particularly like, and if it's published for Handbells, it will be developed and performed at a concert for you. Now we were surprised last summer, a lady came up and said, I would like to buy all the songs in the concert. And so that's why we're doing a science fiction night tonight. Now I don't see her. Is she here? She's in the back. Okay, well, I have a bouquet of flowers here for you. Not only did Julia sponsor all the songs tonight, but as you can tell, she went to all the rehearsals and is ringing tonight. From time to time, things that are envisioned in science fiction become real, like the flip phone, right? That was from Star Trek. Well, here's something, you may think I'm kidding. You can look this up. This is for real. In 3 years, a biotech company called Colossal plans to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. They are even suggesting reintroducing the woolly mammoth into its former territory, the Arctic tundra. Now, I cannot think of any way that that could go wrong. So, while it's still safe, Kendall Ladd is going to perform themes from Jurassic Park. One of the most enduring themes in science fiction is the encounter between humans and space aliens. In 1958, Sheb Woolley wrote and performed a song about a space alien who descends to the Earth, and it was called The Purple People Eater. This became the #1 song on the charts that summer. In the song, the narrator questions the monster about eating people, but the monster alien says, "That's not the reason I came to land. I want a job in a rock and roll band." Sheb Wooley wrote the #1 hit in less than an hour after hearing a child tell a joke. In the 1970s, the Minnesota Vikings became known as the Purple People Eaters, and there was a resurgence in interest in the song during their winning season. Purple People Eater.
Get a job in a rock and roll band. tequila.
I was just looking at my phone during that song at the website. We did get a request for a song from Glinda and Yoli. Are they back there? They requested Tina Turner's theme from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. So we'll see what we can do about that. When Tolkien wrote the series of books that we now call The Lord of the Rings, he saw them neither as science fiction or as myth and fantasy. He saw them as parables. Now, parables are stories meant to illustrate biblical principles. Well, how did he do? I recently completed a rigorous scientific study using a huge sample group to test a hypothesis. I actually asked a few friends what they thought that Tolkien's books were about. John, he said that they're about the corrupting influence of power. Kirsten, who was at the piano with Casey, said you never know who is going to turn out to be the hero. Kendall, who played the solo, said life is full of unexpected challenges. Casey said good will eventually triumph over evil. And my sister-in-law, is she here tonight? I don't see her. She said, where is she?
We're on the Avengers.
I'll finish Tolkien, then I won't have to say anything later. Kendra said that, I thought the best response, she said, this is what Tolkien is about. We should all eat second breakfast. When are you going to play Lord of the Rings?
It's our last number.
Okay. Now, you remember earlier I talked about the distinction between science fiction and myth and fantasy. Okay, now in 2012, Marvel made a film called The Avengers. It blends the two ideas into one story. The protagonists are futuristic people who have starships and robot-assisted body armor, but the antagonists are the ancient Norse gods Thor and Loki. Now this works out well. They blend together well into a non-stop action adventure. It's an action adventure with shotguns and bows and arrows, and there are hammers. It's hard to explain, but the overall point of the Avengers is to guard against being self-absorbed. It's a pretty good theme in our time. We are in a culture where we are all about self-discovery and self-expression and self-realization and finding ourselves. Sometimes we forget to guard against plain old selfishness. I have a note here, and I'll save that for later when you do Lord of the Rings. Okay, are we on Star Trek now? Okay. In 1964, Gene Roddenberry began showing around a proposal to the Hollywood studios for a new series that he described as a space western. To his closest friends, he described it as a modern-day Gulliver's Travels. Each episode would be an adventure story with an underlying political commentary. It is probably safe to say that the vast majority of viewers who tuned into the new show Star Trek on Friday nights on NBC neither noticed or cared about the political commentary. They just saw it as a rollicking good adventure. Now, I was born and raised in Africa, so I never saw Star Trek. I didn't see it till years later when it was in reruns. But my family visited the US in the mid-70s, and I was a child. And so I discovered the Star Trek show at that time. I also discovered the Big Mac. Nature's perfect food. And what followed could only be called symbiosis, because I discovered that the styrofoam container in which the Big Mac came, with scissors, tape, and imagination, could be transformed into a perfectly serviceable starship. Then we returned home, and I reconnected with the African boys and girls that I had grown up with. These were kids who worried on a daily basis whether their family's livestock would be eaten by wild animals or whether their family might be killed in the war and unrest on the border. I could not convince them of the importance of a 5-year mission to seek out new life. They just didn't care. And within 2 years, I too had forgotten about the Starship Big Mac and my alter ego, Captain James T. Congdon. Themes from Star Trek. In 1987, when Star Trek: The Next Generation came out, things had changed in Hollywood for Gene Roddenberry. Unlike the first Star Trek, he now had total control over his screenwriters, the people who wrote the stories from episode to episode. Now, you remember I mentioned earlier the idea of utopian and dystopian science fiction. Well, Roddenberry was definitely a utopian, not only as a storyteller, but just in his daily worldview. He truly believed that people were evolving and that in a short time, the human race would evolve out of conflict. There would be no more conflict. And he issued strict instructions to his screenwriters that that was the idea they were supposed to portray in the show. There would be no serious conflict between humans. There could be conflict with aliens, environmental problems, mechanical problems, no conflict between humans. So the screenwriters began to call this concept the Roddenberry box. This kind of illustrates how science fiction has affected all of society, because if you're reading modern sociology today, that term, the Roddenberry box, will come up. The theme from Star Trek: The Next Generation. The final song that's drawn from the Star Trek series is called Inner Light, and it's from an episode of the same name. Now, the episode was filmed about 5 years into Next Generation, and I have discovered that Star Trek fans consider this episode to be one of the best in the entire series. The story uses the instrument of time travel to place Captain Picard in a somewhat primitive village. It's not futuristic, at least. And even though he's only gone from the ship for about 25 minutes, because he's using time travel, he's in this village for many decades. And he's able to raise a family and have children and have grandchildren and grow old during those 25 minutes. Now, throughout that time, Captain Picard is playing this haunting tune called Inner Light on his flute. And as the episode draws to a close and it goes dark, he's playing that tune in the darkness. Inner Light. Are you doing Lord of the Rings now? Our final number is the Lord of the Rings. Since I've already talked about that, I'm going to tell you about something else. Be sure to check out our website, bellsinmotion.org, where you can read the newsletter. The newsletter is composed by MJ, who was just playing the flute. She is our hard-hitting investigative reporter. You can also see an entire Christmas concert on the website, and there is about a 25-minute NPR interview with our director, Casey Congdon. So check those things out, and then MJ also reminded me at the meal just before the performance that we're also on Facebook. She said, check us out on Facebook. There's good stuff on there. All right, I guess that's it. Looks like they're still getting ready. So I will mention to you that I always come later. Like I don't come at the beginning of the rehearsal. That's how I miss stuff. And I was leaving. I was to come here today, and I went to the walk-in closet where I keep my concert attire, and Casey had hung up on the door frame a dress and a sparkly vest and some high-heeled shoes were there, and I kind of felt like the tuxedo's working for me. Don't you think so? I did bring the dress in case, but I think I'm fine without it. Casey Congdon, who is the director, Bells in Motion, would like to extend heartfelt thanks to First Presbyterian Church here in Decatur for hosting us tonight in this beautiful auditorium. Now, those of you who are visiting and this is not your home church, you may not know that First Pres is the new headquarters of the Bells in Motion group. So thank you for taking us in. Those of you who are visitors and this is not your home church may also not realize that they always have dinosaurs and monsters during the music. Casey would also like to thank these ringers. They come in from all over the country. They give up a weekend a month to practice for concerts like these. They are the National Guard of Handbell Ringers. Historically, they have come in from Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Wisconsin, Texas, and Colorado. I also want to explain to you that it takes about 4 months to prepare a concert like this. But we'd like to thank Lisa Landstrom. Can you give a wave? She did not spend 4 months preparing a concert like this. She got called in yesterday and learned all this music in a few hours. Ryan Hellenthal is our drummer. And next to Ryan, he plays the guitar, he drives the car, he smokes a cigar, he is Anthony Maurer. John Williams wrote hundreds of film scores, but his most enduring creation was the theme for Star Wars. Okay, I'm having trouble with the lightsaber, but he also wrote the themes for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., Jurassic Park, and AI. He wrote the background jazz music for the Intergalactic Dive Bar and Star Wars. John Williams has not retired. He is still working at 92. He writes music every day, always with a pen, never with a computer. He does have a computer. He orders lightsabers on Amazon, but he doesn't write music on there. He is the wealthiest composer who ever lived, and the reason that he chose a career in composing was that he believed he was not good enough to earn a living as a pianist. And now, a medley of John Williams.